Organic painted pottery is really hard to get right. You've got this syrupy organic paint. You apply it to just the right material, and if all turns out right, it turns into black designs on your pottery after firing. But a lot of things have to come together first. Most importantly, you have to apply that organic paint to just the right clay that will turn that into black designs. So today, I'm heading into one of the most remote areas of southeastern Arizona, the Aravaipa Valley, to collect some material that's really good at turning organic paint into black designs. And while I drive out there and hike into this spot, I'll talk to you a little bit about what's required, about that unique material that turns organic paint black, what it's like, where it comes from, maybe how you can find your own. So come along with me. I spent years searching all over the southern Southwest for some material that would turn organic paint black so that I could make authentic Salado polychrome pottery replicas. And this material that I'm going to today was the only stuff I found in the entire southern Southwest that will turn organic paint black consistently. I know other people in the Southwest that have spent years searching for the right material. The stuff we're looking for is a Smectite clay, and it is not easy to find. In the ancient Southwest, many different groups made organic painted pottery. But in historic times, only a few pueblos in New Mexico made organic painted pottery. Now, those groups in New Mexico use to this day a clay that has been called a bentonite clay. So that gives us a clue what we're looking for. Bentonite is a type of Smectite clay. The clay that Clint Swink discovered, the famous Cannonball White, has been tested and shown to be Montmorillonite, which is another form of Smectite clay. So we have a pretty good idea what we're looking for. We're looking for a Smectite clay. In some areas, it's more common than others, but it is rather rare.
I'm aware of the bonds that were created today. When you told me that sure there's a way.
So how did I find this stuff? Easy. Google Maps. So if you go to Google Maps or Apple Maps or any of those kind of websites that'll show satellite photography, I knew I was looking for white clay. I just went to that satellite imagery and just scanned across a broad area looking for anything white. And when you do that, this area stands out like a sore thumb. It's this big patch of white. And then you have to find time to drive out here and hike in here, which, as far out as this is no small feat.
I'm a wanderer of the soul. Before the end, I plan to be whole. But I know I'll lose myself along the way. What's gone is gone. What's past is past. Let me leave what belongs in the past.
So when you're locating minerals using Google Maps like that, a lot of times you can hike many miles out into the country just to find that that white spot you found on the map is not clay at all, but rocks. When I got out here, I found that it wasn't a rock, so that was good. But it also didn't have the texture of clay. It didn't have that crackled texture on the surface. It didn't break into those same angular chunks, those hard nodules that clay does. So I wasn't really sure what to make of it. I'd found other minerals that weren't clay, like gypsum, but it had a different texture than that too. Also, further up this little draw, there was some of this material that was kind of pink in color. And that pinkish material had a little bit of that crackled texture on the top that you expect to see in clay. And so I collected some of this material and brought it back to my studio. And back in my studio, what I found was that I could levitate this material and I could apply it to the surface of a pot, and it would actually fire hard. So, although it's not part of the definition of clay, really the special thing about clay, the magical thing about clay is when you get it hot, it becomes ceramic, it turns hard. And so, although I'm not sure about classifying this material as clay, it definitely turned hard in a firing. So, it is clay-like, or perhaps it is some sort of clay. Now, I've taken minerals to the University of Arizona before and asked them to identify them, and they won't identify clay. They say that clay takes very expensive lab tests in order to identify. So I'm left kind of guessing on some of this. So I did look up some about the geology of this area, and I found a report about this spot that talks about it being zeolite. Now, zeolite is somehow similar to montmorillonite. They both seem to be formed from volcanic ash that is chemically decomposed in alkali waters. The only difference I can see in all the stuff I read online is that montmorillonite is a clay and zeolite is not a clay, it's a mineral. So they're similar but different. Now, I'm not a geologist, I'm not a chemist. I'm left guessing about a lot of this stuff. Don't take me for my word on these kind of things because I'm probably as ignorant as you are. But I'm reading those reports, I'm out here looking at the materials, and I'm making my best guesses about things. So when I find a clay that holds organic paint, I make the assumption that it's a Smectite clay based on Clint Swink's montmorillonite and that Cochiti slip from New Mexico that is bentonite. But I really don't know. I have no way of testing it without spending a lot of money. And the same with this. It sounds like it's zeolite, which is similar to montmorillonite. So the fact that some of this material is crackled and hardens in a fire, does that tell me that it's montmorillonite? Maybe. I really don't know. But I do know it works. Now, I used this stuff for many years and I promoted it. I encouraged other people to use it because it seemed to be perhaps the material that the Salado were using. In studying about the Salado, I found that this spot, this general area, is pretty much the geographic center of the Salado phenomenon. So although Salado pottery was made over a huge area, this is pretty much the center of it. And there were several large villages that have been proven to have been making Salado polychrome back in the 1300s that are within a day's walk of here. So there's definitely some evidence. So although I used this material, eventually I stopped using it, and that was because of the texture. So when I looked at the Salado sherds, they had a specific texture about that white slip. A clay-like texture that looked like it was painted on as a clay. This material did not produce that texture. It was a little more grainy and gritty, and it was difficult to apply. And so in the end, I moved on and found something else to use. Now, this might be the right material, but if it is, I'm either not processing it or not applying it in the correct manner. So today, the reason I'm here isn't to say that this is the material the Salado were using, but I am thinking this stuff held organic paint really well and it fired to a really nice white color, whereas most of those clays that hold organic paint fire to kind of a buff color. So what I'm wondering about is whether or not I could mix this with some of my Smectite clays and come up with something that's superior at holding organic paint and turning white in a firing.
State of mind is set on fear. The end's uncertain, future's near. Follow the voices from below. Wherever I go, there's a chain. My own shackles drive me insane. Let your body be new.
I had carried out and levigated a whole 5-gallon bucket of this stuff at one time. And I don't remember if I threw it out when I became frustrated with it, or if it was lost, misplaced, or thrown away when we moved. But I can't find any of it to save my life at this time. So that's why I'm back out here today. I want to collect a little more of this stuff, take it home. I already know it'll hold organic paint. I already know it'll apply to a pot and turn hard when it's fired. I also know it won't give the right texture, but I have some other ideas. I have some ideas about mixing it with clay, some Smectite clay, and maybe getting a good material. So that's the purpose of my expedition today. So stay tuned for some future videos showing what I can do with this stuff, or what I hope to do with this stuff anyways. In the meantime, I did want to give you guys a lesson about organic paint. I get this question a lot. You know, people order that Smectite clay slip that I sell on my website, and then they think, you know, it's a good white slip for any old thing. And you can use it for a white slip for anything, but The lesson that I've been teaching in my workshops and that I want to give you today is this. Smectite clay isn't really good. It isn't really a good white slip. It has an extremely high shrinkage rate. So if you apply it to your pot, even remotely thick, it's going to crackle all up and possibly even start coming off. It's difficult stuff to work with. So if you're not doing organic paint, don't mess with Smectite clay slip. It's not going to be what you're looking for. It's not going to be optimal. It also has an affinity for carbon. So if you don't oxidize your firing really good, and this is another problem I hear from people a lot, it'll turn gray because it'll grab that carbon right out of the atmosphere and hold on to it tenaciously. So it is difficult to fire. It is difficult to apply and everything. It's good for holding organic paint. That's the only reason we use it. If you're just making beautiful pottery and you just want a white slip, I'm sure there are better white slips. I know there are better white slips. I have better white slips, and there's probably some good commercial white slips, some low fire commercial white slips. In the long term, I'd like to find some good commercial white slips that I could recommend to people on this channel, who are trying to do polychrome pottery. The Smectite will work, but if you're just making, beautiful pottery and you don't care if it's organic paint or not, you're not trying to be authentic, right? Don't mess with it. If you are trying to be authentic, then, that's what it's for. Anyway, I will be sharing some locations of good Smectites in the future. I will be sharing the results of this experiment. I appreciate you coming on my adventure with me today. Now, if you're interested in learning more about organic paint and how it works, I've got a really great video about how to fire organic paint in an above ground fire. I'll link that up right over here. So go check that out. I'll make my way back to my truck, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.